Hello, everybody, and welcome. If you stuck with us for the whole day, this is the fifth session from the Retail Bulletin Digital Transformation Strategy 2021. It's the last day of June. It's not raining at the moment. England won the football last night, and we're halfway through the week. So what could be better than wrapping up your hump day with a final session from us? If you have stuck with us for all 5 events today, thank you so much. And you're very welcome back for this final session. If you are just joining us for the first time, then welcome also. We have a brilliant panel to wrap up today's events, and I'll be asking them to introduce themselves very shortly. This session is all about leveraging data, that D word that we all throw around, leveraging data to deliver a digital personalized customer experience. These are the guys that are going to be unpacking that in a moment. And as I said, I'll introduce them just so. But we'd love you to get involved, audience. We've always welcomed questions here at the TRB. So depending on what device you're using, you'll see a Q&A button. Please use it. And it's my job as moderator to make sure that every question that gets asked gets answered. So yeah, please do get involved. You might have a question for one of these lovely people in front of me right now, or you might have a more general panel question. But we'll take care of all of that, and we'll make sure that we finish the session with all of your answers in place. So without further ado, I'm going to ask my panel to introduce themselves. And I'm going to start with you, Janice, please. Hello, Janice. Who are you? Tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Janice. I am the e-commerce and marketing director at Look Fabulous Forever. We are a direct-to-consumer beauty brand catering to older women. And by older women, I don't mean what the rest of the beauty industry generally does, which is anyone over about 30. Our customers are predominantly in their 60s and 70s. I've worked for a range of e-commerce brands from Birchbox to Playboy, a lot of media and entertainment. So I'm looking forward to our chat today.
How long has Look Fabulous Forever been going for, Janice?
8 years now. Our founder started it when she was 65 and she is 73 now.
I love it. I love it. I wasn't aware of the brand until I saw you on the panel list, and we've obviously spoke before today. But yeah, I looked up to it. I looked at it. So how long have you been involved for?
Just over a year. I started during lockdown last year. So met my
Always
colleague for the first time about 3 weeks ago.
You actually seen a colleague in 3D now, yeah?
Yes.
Amazing. Well, listen, great to have you on board, and thank you for joining the panel today. Paul, hello, sir. Who are you?
Hello. So Paul Morris. I've been in digital marketing for about 22 plus years. Started out with the likes of, for those that can remember the now deceased laterooms.com. So started out from there when there was like one person in the call center up to about 100 and odd. Various other jobs, but the likes of PZ Cousins ran their e-commerce and digital globally, and then ran food to funeral care and everything in between for the co-op. And I'm currently a digital acquisition and a marketing director for the B2B side of VisualSoft. That's me.
Great to have you with us, sir, and thank you again for joining us as well. Mm-hmm. And then all the way across the pond to Austin in Texas. Hello, Lisa.
Well, hello there, Darren. How are you?
I'm very good.
Good. Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm calling from Austin, Texas, and I am a product manager at Nuxeo, focusing on digital asset management. So all about the rich media, the data that goes along with that. Prior to joining Nuxeo, I was actually a client and was in the advertising space for almost 20 years and have been focused in digital asset management for about 15. And so really excited to talk about data. It's all about data. Data makes the world go round for sure.
It sure does, and especially when it's used well as well. Yeah, you win the award for being our furthest away panelist today in all of the sessions that we've ran. So Karen will sort you out a prize for being our furthest away geographical member, I'm sure.
Wonderful, thank you.
Great to have you all with us. Thank you so much. And we're going to get cracking. So remember, audience, stick with us, please, if you can, and get involved. Use that Q&A button, and I will get your questions to the panel. Don't worry if you don't have any questions, we'll just keep conversation going, and you'll get lots of rich content. Janice, I am going to kick off with you. So from a Look Fabulous Forever perspective, where do you start with personalizing experiences?
Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey for us that when I joined the business just over a year ago, it became apparent quite quickly that the main way that we're going to grow the business was by improving our conversion. And what was really holding us back from that point of view was that we were trying to serve everyone with a single website experience. And particularly, we're very different from anything else on the market. You will struggle to find products like ours elsewhere, and we exist because mainstream beauty brands aren't producing products that are specifically designed for older women. So when you first hear about the brand, you want to understand what is our proposition. You want to hear about our founder, Trisha's story, and the fact that she was frustrated by this situation herself and decided to, because those products weren't out there, she was going to develop them herself and sell them herself. And that's the kind of story of the brand. And if you're new to us, you need to understand that as a proposition. But if you're a returning customer, you know all that. That's why you're loyal to the brand, and you want to get into product, and you want to, kind of us to understand what you're going to be interested in. So it became apparent very quickly that the first step on our kind of conversion improvement journey would be to serve different experiences for different customers. While that kind of storytelling piece was really key to get started quickly, where our first step was product recommendations, that particularly if you're a new customer, chances are you are going to buy one of our primers as your first purchase, because they're really key to kind of keeping your colors vibrant as you get older, or you're going to buy a traditionally popular product like lipstick or eyeshadow. You're very, very unlikely to buy skincare from us as a first purchase. But if you're a returning visitor, your profile is going to be very different, particularly if you're someone who's bought skincare from us before. You're probably going to be in a replenishment cycle. So we started with the product recommendations and then moved on to that storytelling piece, and then added particularly tailored offers, both based on what your kind of customer status is, if you haven't bought from us for a while, if you're a new customer, but also particularly where we're doing tailored offers through other channels like email or Facebook, that actually you see that offer replicated when you land on the website. So there isn't that disconnect of, oh, what was that code? I can't remember it now. We remind you. So that's the journey that we've been on so far.
Great, thank you so much for that, and for sharing that as a kickoff to the event as well. Much appreciated. I will come back to you shortly. Paul, can you provide an example of how you're using data to provide a personalised experience?
Yeah, I'd probably start where I currently am, at VisualSoft, and more, regardless of us being an e-commerce platform, more us trying to get customers to use the platform. So B2B businesses. This is a B2B heavy example. So we're using a company called Webio, and then we're mashing that together with the likes of, someone on this video will probably know the likes of Lead Forensics and HubSpot. So what we're doing is when essentially the Webio and Lead Forensics is being called, it's then allowing us to start to do, I'd say, relatively simple customization, but we're finding really helps with conversion. So often that's conversion to a lead for somebody filling in a form or giving us a call. So it's things like an at industry name tailoring, or at freaking them out personalizing company name. So it might be they land on a certain landing page, and then we're going to tailor it to their sector. So we're going to call out their sector, it's specifically in the name, in a title, and then we're going to start to dynamically change things like the images or case studies or language, less language, but as we go and become more advanced, it will be more language. So I'd say that's quite a nice example as to how to drive, and in our case, it's engagement and it's form fills, and then it's hopefully business on the back of that. Relatively simple, but pretty impactful, really.
In terms of specific examples around personalization and getting people to trust it, I think personalization is sometimes greeted suspiciously by the customer because they're not quite sure what's behind it. How do you get your audience to trust you in terms of the way that you are trying to communicate with them?
Yeah, so I've completely stolen a model, a trust model, basically from. You'll have to look them up. So this isn't me. Meister, Green, and Galford, sort of three academics, and I've then mashed in some of my elements that I'll tell you about in a minute. But I'd say, from a trust perspective, you've got to look at, like, what the hell do we mean by trust to begin with? Everybody's got their own different definition. Well, they codified it, and theirs were. So it was whether you were credible, whether you were reliable, the level of intimacy, and that's not jumping into bed with your consumer. That's, can you be trusted with information? And I don't imagine, like Look Fabulous Forever. That's kind of key. It's a quite personal thing. So I'd imagine that resonates there. And then things like self-orientation. So too many times I hear or see companies pretending that they care about consumers, and they don't really. I mean, I worked, it's a good few years ago, but the likes of the Co-op, where they did truly care about their target market, their target audience, and their customers. I saw a lot of the brand studies as a result, and that really aided conversion rate. And conversely, I won't go too much into the detail, but when we saw those that are in the country will probably recognise some of the misgivings that some people have had over Co-op and some of the ways that they've hit the news in the past. And equally, we saw conversion rate, engagement rate, lesser degree basket value, but basket value go down as well as a result of that pulling on that emotional trust angle. So I'd say, that credible, reliable, intimate, self-orientation, and then kind of like the cherry and the icing on the top is the emotion that's around that. So, are you making them? You're hopefully not going to make them angry or cry, but are you evoking an emotional response to whether it's your marketing or whether it's your on-site or the way that you make them look or feel? That's how I'd say, and I'm not going to lecture anybody on what that mix looks like. Everyone's mix is different, but I'd say those are the key elements for me.
Thank you, sir. That's a great point. Yeah, and we certainly don't mean making customers cry. Otherwise, we've got something really wrong at that point, I think, haven't we? I'm going to zoom across the pond to you, Lisa. And actually, Lisa, I should say to you as well, thank you to Nuxio for sponsoring the event as well.
You're welcome.
Because I didn't actually mention that before, but you very kindly are the headline sponsors for this session. So thank you, Nuxio, very much indeed. Lisa, data. But let's call it rich media. What is the role of rich media in all of this? And how does data relate?
Right. So I think, you talk about, hey, are we making our consumer cry? Well, actually, that may be your intent in some respect, to create that connection. And so how we do that is through rich media. And there's the adage of picture is worth 1,000 words is so incredibly true. And it helps us ultimately get to that bottom line. What we're looking to do is to build trust, right? So we speak the language, we tell the story that corresponds to our consumer. If we're on the website, we need to be consistent. We need to be able to show valid and truthful information. We need to be authentic. I know that term gets thrown around a lot, but authenticity and speaking your brand is super important. And we tell that through visual, we tell that through audio, we tell that through video. It's something that allows us to basically put the consumer within our shoes and vice versa. And so we can use rich media to create that connection and to create that empathetic connection between the brand and the consumer. Now, in order to do that, in order to build trust, we need to be consistent. And data comes into it because it allows us to do a couple of things. It allows us to make the suggestions. We're able to know what somebody has purchased before. So we can look at the patterns of purchase. We can look at what's in the box, what's in the cart, and put that information together to make honest and relevant recommendations for the consumer itself to reach your goal, whether that's to increase the basket, to create empathy, whatever. We can use that rich media to create it, and we can use that data to connect the various items. It also, the data allows us to speak the consumer's language. And so I think it was really interesting when Janice was talking about the various items that we make recommendations for, and how I speak and the terms that I use are different than what Janice might use. And what the data allows us to do is to actually speak a common language, whatever that might be. We can normalize data. We can make sure that in the end, when I make a recommendation and I'm able to use the SKU because I've been able to get that from a PIM or some other system, that it's still showing in a language that makes sense to the consumer.
Got it. Janice, I'm going to come back to you just as we continue that theme, because intelligent guided selling is the buzzword of many retailers as well, trying to use data correctly to guide customers down a route they think they want to be guided down. How do you use that in your business, that intelligent guided selling, to really deliver personalized recommendations that customers appreciate as well?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a really interesting challenge for the beauty industry for a long time, that it's difficult to buy color makeup products online and be confident that you bought the right color. But in the last 15 months, you know, even now when stores are open, you can't test product. So the online experience has to up its game in terms of helping customers. And this has been probably the biggest challenge for us as a business, is how do you help the customer find the right color that will suit them? And we looked at a lot of different options, and particularly for a while, we got quite seriously into AR. But the problem with AR, and to be fair, the providers were quite transparent about this, is that part of the reason that certain colors suit you is to do with the way they refract light on your skin, and AR can't replicate that. And for our products, a lot of it is to do with how it works on your skin and how it's going to sit on your skin differently to a traditional product. So we decided in the end that AR was not going to be the right solution for us. So we wanted some way of helping our customers and guiding them specifically to color makeup products to the shades that were going to suit them best. So we work with a provider called Conversity, who specializes in intelligent guided selling, and produced a tool that asks customers a lot of questions that will help establish what colors suit them. Things like, you know, what colors do you generally wear in terms of clothes? When do you get compliments? Things like, what color do the veins in your wrist appear? Because the undertone in your skin will make them look particularly blue or purple or green or yellowish, depending on that base note in your skin. And that's going to very much influence what colors will suit you. So we ask customers a series of questions. Are they looking for something because they're popping to Tesco, or are they looking for something because they're going out for a special dinner? Then the kind of colors are going to be very different. And that has been really successful for us. The feedback on that tool has been really positive. And we have just in the last couple of days seen that our overall customer satisfaction that we measure on a quarterly basis through NPS has drastically shot up in the last quarter. And the only significant change in our experience has been adding this personalized recommendations through our color quiz.
Wow, so a commercial benefit hand in hand leads to customer satisfaction.
Absolutely.
How's that for a hard measure of fact? So in terms of whether you take that a step further now, what can you do to deepen that? Is there another way you can take it forward, or you just continue as is for now?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of things that we can do to improve the specific experience of the tool that we've got. Things like, at the moment, we don't have the ability to send you your recommendations, because I think what we expected when we implemented that this was going to be a mid to bottom funnel tool, that this was going to be, people have heard of us and now they're thinking about what colors to buy. And what we actually found is it's been a much more top of funnel tool. It's much more been the place where people have chosen to interact with us for the first time. So from their point of view, actually they're not ready to buy, they've not got that far down the funnel with us. So actually being able to send them their recommendations so they can keep them and refer back to them when they are ready to buy is going to be a kind of key part of improving the experience. But I think for us, it's just getting the kind of conversion metrics right from that product, because it is very top of funnel about how do we use it to make it work for us as a business.
Got it. Thanks, Janice. Paul, I'm going to come on to you if I may. I mean, leveraging data is it can be bewildering for some retailers, and some of the things we've already discussed here today, it all sounds great, but how do retailers really get started? What would you recommend they did here? What advice would you offer them?
Yeah, I've so that like a typical, let's make sure I can remember me four. So the typical four are like people, process, technology, and Wonga ultimately. So you're going to mash those four in some way. And I'd say, you know, a couple of the key ones of those to begin with are mashing the right people, whether that's aptitude or ability or experience, with the right tech so that they can utilize that and kind of build on it and build with it. So if I've got loads of other examples and I'll come on to a couple in a minute, but where I am currently as an example at VisualSoft is these two products within that suite, one called Campaign Builder, one called Basket Recovery, and they do what kind of it says on the tin. So they enable personalized campaigns based on perhaps past interactions on email. Basket Recovery is exactly that. So it enables you to reconnect with them at, you know, you're not just going to keep harassing them, but you'll connect with them at the right time. And these other tools that can do that. And then I'd say often it's a vernacular that I live by nowadays is something called POCs, so proof of concept, so POCs. So, and it's really starting to move forward without having been in some long contract. You may get to the proof points of going down, a Salesforce Einstein AI, but you'd be a bit silly, in my opinion, to start there if you're an SME. You really want to be starting with, like a Zoho PageSense around, and there's loads of other tools, A/B testing. Then you want to maybe move to start MVT. I'm not going to speak around dams and things. Lisa will wipe the floor with me on those. But, making sure that you've got the right tools and assets. And then, I mentioned in my first example before, about the likes of HubSpot. So, HubSpot for us is a really key way, and, I know it's sometimes more in B2B, but it's a key way of us keeping connection, keeping email history. So I was having a complaint and a whinge with Virgin Media earlier today. And I can tell that they're using campaign tracking IDs, as we all can tell if you're in the business. So they're obviously keeping a track of all of those within a CRM system. It's not that, it's another one which I've gone and forgotten. I wasn't going to quote it on this call. But I'd just say making sure that you use your tools in anger. You're not spending huge waves of cash before you've proved out the concepts. You can then prove the benefit. I mean, I like Janice's before around the tool, which was more top of funnel. I think that's brilliant. And then you can use that maybe for a different kind of interaction or engagement versus the bottom of funnel that was perhaps more envisaged to begin with. So I'd say start small, build out. Don't be scared by all the terminology and the vernacular. I think sometimes, pardon my language, some people like bullshit bingo, and they like to sort of, well, they do, don't they? They like to sound intelligent. And sometimes I think if you've got a few key tools to test key concepts and move forward, that's a brilliant place to start. I should stop swearing. Sorry.
That's right. I've said much worse on live broadcast. Don't worry about it. Lisa, let me continue that with you, if I may. Carry on this where do you get started theme for me, please.
Well, I think the key way to cut through all of the BS is to speak the language that your consumer is using, because ultimately what we need to be able to do is to make our product findable by the user, right? If they can't find what they're looking for or what we're recommending or what have you, then you've wasted their time and your time. And so I think it's paying attention to how people are looking for things, right? So I know we have various ways that we can get the data into the system. Yes, as Paul said, start small. Look at what data you have available to you. If you have a particular PIM or a product information system that where you have SKUs, like, of course, nobody speaks in SKUs, but find out what it is that they're using to refer to that product and then take advantage of that. Like, don't ever think that your data is dead. Data is organic. Your language is organic. You should be modifying how you use that data to reflect what the user is. And again, that goes back to trust. Like, am I telling my brand story? Am I telling my product story? Or am I telling my consumer story? And, you know, ultimately it's what the consumer wants. So we know that we need to support from a back-end perspective what packaging might need to be, what the descriptions might need to be, but learn from what's working and not working from your consumer standpoint. So pay attention to those search logs and into where is it that you may be losing that conversion, right? Are they even getting things into the basket or not? And why aren't they getting to the basket? Is because they can't find it. That may be a part of it. And so you have to look to how do we change that and maybe create a language or a thesaurus or some other back-end index to allow your consumer to actually find what they're looking for.
Got it. And you talked a lot about, I mean, one of your opening statements was data makes the world go round. But do you think retailers truly know how to get hold of data to make the world go round? Because I think some retailers just have so much of it, they don't know what to do with it.
And I think that's the big thing, is understanding how your data is used and what within that data pattern is meaningful and relevant, right? So actually auditing your data to understand its use and its relevance, so that you can modify how you maybe describe things, what fields you're using, any of that to make things usable. Within the library or DAM world, we have a saying, garbage in, garbage out, right? So pay attention to what it is that you're putting into those systems, and know what it is that you're putting into those systems, but understand what's relevant.
It's often so simple though, isn't it? Like the garbage in, garbage out analogy is, it's so simple and so true, but people still fall in the trap of putting the garbage in and getting the garbage out.
Exactly, right. And oftentimes what I say is that, well, then you might as well just have like a file share where you're presenting pictures to the user, because, you know, otherwise it's no good.
Thank you very much. I'm going to come back to you, Janice, if I may. What are your business sort of personalization priorities in the coming months or the next year ahead?
Yeah, so I think there are kind of two big projects for us. One is around product and category activation, but particularly understanding things like, for example, customers who buy skincare from us, on average, their lifetime value is twice as high as people who only buy makeup products from us. So actually getting that first skincare purchase is really key. And there are people who buy lipstick from us but don't buy mascara, and kind of all of those things, and kind of helping them on that journey. And the other big piece for us is about post-purchase, that we are about far more than just selling beauty products. It's about really helping older women look the best and make the most of their products. So we have huge amounts of really rich content. And because our products are different, some of them work in different ways to traditional products. So for example, our lip primer works in a slightly counterintuitive way, that you don't put it on your lips like you do with some other products. You actually put it around the outside of your lips. So being able to send video content saying, hey, you've just bought our lip primer, here's a video that shows you how to use it, so that they get greater value from that product, and they're more likely to shop with us again, and more likely to engage with the rest of our video tutorial content and all of those things. So I think that post-purchase experience is going to be really key, and also kind of replicating that when you return to the website, knowing that you have just bought that product and here's a great video that shows you how to use it.
I mean, I'm interested in your customer profile, in the sense that It took me ages, for example, to get my stepfather to convert to online shopping for his groceries because he was a bit suspicious of it. And then the pandemic kind of forced us down that road, and I still have to manage it all for him online. And he calls me up if he wants something adjusted. So, but that took a long time. And the older customer is sometimes fearful of technology and even using websites and online. Has that been a challenge for your business, and how have you overcome it?
Yeah, I mean, I think Paul's point about trust is really, really important. And actually, a lot of our customers will say they feel like they're buying from Trisha. And that is really key, that, that through our social channels, through video content, through imagery, that seeing that, this isn't some big corporate, this is Trisha who created this brand because she faced the same problems as our customers face. We have got data from our customers saying actually some of them don't do that much other shopping elsewhere. I think things have changed massively in the last year or so, that over 65s are the fastest growing market in e-commerce. And I get quite frustrated that a lot of brands are concentrating on Gen Z and millennials and think, oh, why bother with older people? They're not very tech savvy. It's like, that's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
And if you're not thinking about an older audience, you're really missing out.
Absolutely. It was really it's such an inspired story that Trisha started the business, and was targeting women of similar age to herself. It's just, I think it's a really inspired story. And it is about that trust piece, right? You feel like you want to buy from this lady because of the story of the business as well. But it can easily be lost at the same time, can't it?
Yeah, and
wrong comms, wrong, and then wrong message.
Yeah, there was some interesting data from Facebook recently. They were talking about representation and why it matters. And they were talking about this idea that not only are older people generally underrepresented in advertising, but they're never shown in positions of power. They are shown as weak and vulnerable and, doddery and all of those things. And actually our customers really respond to being treated with respect and empowered and given the tools to feel empowered is a core part of our brand.
And yeah, I think there's so many iconic role models now of senior women who are, flying the flag. For example, Dame Joan Collins, Helen Mirren, and so on. Some amazing, incredible, strong women that I think would kill someone if they were ever called doddery, wouldn't they? So, yeah, good for you guys and good for what you're doing as well. I love it. Paul, I'm going to come on to you, if I may, sir. This trust piece then. So I want to unpack it just a little bit further. So how does a retailer really convince a customer to trust them if the trust has been broken previously? Is there a way back from breaking trust, is what I'm asking?
I think there is. So let me give you a real life example. I've got to watch again some of my language that I use, but if some of you that remember the Co-op in about, I can't remember the exact dates, I think about 2015 when we were there, and a gentleman was essentially, allegedly, snorting cocaine whilst having sex, I think possibly with rent boys, but unsure, and was misappropriating funds also from the bank. And then there was a case for that, and that really rocked the Co-op. I remember watching it on TVs that we had in Manchester, is the central base of the Co-op. Got quite a large, nice building there, One Angel Square, and we were all watching it in like the marketing floor together. I was with the head of brand at the time, and it was like, oh my goodness, this is being played out in front of us. And then thereafter, we're absolutely seeing an impact on, it's quite a big business, circa £9 billion revenue business. So obviously had some quite sophisticated agencies, econometrics, brand studies, and that absolutely hit us. I'll give you an example in areas that perhaps you wouldn't quite think, but areas like funeral care and funeral care plans were being hit and not necessarily being taken out as much. And conversion rates, we had an electrical business and a circa £100 million net sale business, and we were seeing that was there. And I'd say what the likes of future leaders at the time did, a gentleman that I reported into briefly, the CEO called Richard Pennycook, was doing was really to bring us back to the heart of what the co-op was about, was kind of owning up to those mistakes. And, that was, in that case, that absolutely shouldn't have happened, but that wasn't endemic of the organisation. So it was trying to explain that story. It was doing something about it. It was being seen to be doing the right thing, and they were also being seen to and doing the right thing. And then, if I'm being honest, engaging in, and it wasn't calculating at all, but it was things like the new membership proposition came out of the co-op shortly thereafter, where they were giving a percentage back to consumers, so reciprocity, and also back to charities. That was circa the 5% and the 1%. I think they've more recently doubled the amount that they're giving back to charities. Then there was numerous other examples of how they were working back on that trust. And again, they were leveraging the credibility, the reliability, the intimacy. I was part of, I used to run help run the digital marketing team. And we did a lot around Christmas, about every store going to somebody that was in need, depositing a bag, I think it's circa 25, 30 pounds to give somebody that was in need. And there was a TV advertising campaign. And yeah, that was a TV advertising campaign, but I can truly say that they meant that all of the managers of the circa 2,500 stores had an impact in that, and were going round to that person that was generally struggling financially or slightly older and couldn't get out, and really supporting them. And how that resonated, I can't remember the numbers, I haven't prepared them, but how that resonated on social media and beyond, it was absolutely trending. So it was something that we felt that those little micro pulses were helping reinforce the brand and get us back on track. Whilst it not being forced, it was just part of the brand ethos and the ethics that the business went back to. So I'd say it can, but it's not an instant rebound. You do something like that, it takes time to rework that trust, and you can't be calculating in it.
It's a really good example, because actually that story was massive at the time. And, it was no exaggeration to say at one point it looked like the co-op could fall over, so... Yeah, I mean, Richard Pennycook, I think he was the CFO that became then the CEO, didn't he? And
he was a brilliant individual who helped steady that ship.
He's very, very respected in the industry. So I think people sort of appreciated his steady hand. Lisa, let's lead on this. Let's carry on with this theme. So trust, recovering trust. Can it be? I
think absolutely it can be. And I think you have an opportunity to create the foundation of trust early on, right? So as Paul was saying, they were able to recover because they had built a level of trust, right? And I think that's what you can do ahead of time. Now, what can you do after the time? Part of that is reacting quickly and reacting honestly. So how can you react quickly? Well, that's because you know what tools you have at your disposal, right? So from a marketing standpoint, what have we created? What can we access? Here's what I have, how can I use it? So, if you have data at your disposal to be able to know what you can use, what you can't use, how you can tell that story, and also to understand what have your consumers responded to in the past, right? So also getting to the point of the follow-up within the basket, like what is that message that resonates? Speak to that message, get back to that message. And I know it sounds kind of crazy from a data perspective, but you actually do have access to that, or you should have access to that within your systems, right? So your point of sale information should be incorporated into all of your other information. Your work in progress information should be part of what you present in your point of sale. So it all is seemingly unrelated, but it is so crucial to being able to respond quickly to a situation like this, right? So in part two, one of your first steps might be to, okay, hey, let's pull off any marketing that involves that person right now. And the way that you can do that is to go within your systems, run a quick search on that talent, on that person, to be able to say, okay, you know what, let's stop this. Let's get a more branding message within that, and let's get it into onto the airwaves, into the interwebs, what have you, to be able to own now that that narrative and to get back to what your brand stands for.
It's a great answer, Lisa. Thank you. And time is whizzing by. We've got 5 minutes left, would you believe? So I'm going to start thinking about a wrap with each of our panelists. So I will be coming to each of you for closing thoughts, starting with you, Janice, in just a second. Audience, you stayed with us actually, and I think actually our audience number has gone up since we began. So if you've just joined us and you've got a quick burning question, now is your time to chuck it in as we start to close off with our panelists. For all of you, and I'm going to start with Janice, I just want you to think about any particular learns that have really come to light since the pandemic began, and anything that, a golden nugget that you could potentially share with our audience, that's something that's come up because of the pandemic, and it's something that you're able to share with us as a closing thought. So Janice, over to you. You have to go first. The others get longer to think about it. So there you go. Someone wants to go first.
I think for us, it's been about building a more direct relationship with our customers, that particularly when we locked down for the first time, our customer base were disproportionately affected by that most of them are retired, so their lives revolved around family and grandchildren and seeing friends and volunteering, and all of that stuff went away overnight. So Trisha decided to set up a closed Facebook group for our customers that was a place not just to talk about our products, but actually where women could share their experiences of how they were feeling. And that's given us a much closer relationship with our customers beyond our kind of purely commercial one.
I love that. And I think that is one, I mean, nobody's wanting to live through what we've been through for the last 16, 18 months, but one of the silver linings of the pandemic, I think, is the reinstatement of community and how people have tried to look out for each other more than they probably did before. And that's a beautiful example of it. Janice, thank you so much for your contributions today on behalf of your brilliant brand. Thank you. And hopefully we can work again sometime. Paul, what's your thoughts on this matter? What's your learns over the pandemic?
Yeah, I'd say truly focus on customer need and design content around that. So content design, I'd say, is the thing that's really come out for me. Too many brands are still forcing content out that they believe that they want to be read or to be engaged with, and they're not truly often focusing on customer need. And I'll go back to Janice's example. I'm not an expert really in a field, but it's really looking at how during the pandemic, I also worked for another company, Havas Media Group. They have the likes of some makeup brands and things, and they were really seeing a changing dynamic of how people were wearing some of the products from some large brands that they were dealing with. And then what does that mean? What does that mean for people, the way that they look or feel about themselves or need? And we've all been through that, haven't we? The last 16 to 8 months have been, tough for everybody. So I'd say brands need, the ones that I believe have prospered have really looked at what consumers want and reacted to it, and some have been more or less successful. You look at Brewdog more recently, that was once the darling a good time ago, and only the content that they designed around user need, which was the gold glass or whatever it was recently, hasn't, so that might have flown a good few months ago, but now doesn't. And I think the way that people are being treated, employment from some of the pub chains, again, that I won't mention, some people have not dealt with very well during that. So I think some of that's come to bear. So how can you truly focus on customer need and then create content around those customer needs?
I was really surprised by the Brewdog story a couple of weeks ago, because I think, the reality of obviously life behind the scenes there and what's projected are clearly emerging as quite different. So I was quite surprised, and have to say I really love their ale as well. So there you go, Hazy Jane all the way. But anyway, that's for another conversation. Paul, brilliant insights today. Thank you, sir, and lovely to work with you. Lisa, you're going to wrap it up from across the pond, please.
Wow. Okay. So I would say that the way that the pandemic has affected businesses, that we've been able to see there's people who have been able to quickly shift their business model, whether that's to offering community versus just pure on product, whether that's shifting what it is that you sell, what you do. I think those people who have done well are those companies who have shown that they have the capacity for change and to quickly respond, to quickly understand that things are not going as you originally thought they were going to go, and to say that you have a different need that you can fulfill within your community, and to be able to shift your business to be able to reflect that and to do it quickly, I think is something that we've seen, that those clients of ours that have really been able to kind of pivot in certain ways and to respond has definitely been a benefit. You know, we were seeing people go more online, and you know, it was already a trajectory that was happening, but what the pandemic created is this more accelerated sort of need, and people having to say, okay, stop, we need to do a 180. And yeah, the pandemic really showed those people who are agile and nimble and being able to shift.
Thank you so much. And thank you again to Nuxio for the sponsorship today. And a big UK hello to the state of Texas as well.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. I mean, that is the end of 5 brilliant sessions today. It's an honor to be the moderator when we get such rich content from such great panelists. So thank you so much. We've ran a couple of events in June, so thanks for joining us. Look out on the Retail Bulletin website for upcoming events, and there will be more virtual events, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to deliver you an in-person event in the hopefully not too distant future. But for now, thank you to Lisa, to Janice, and to Paul for a brilliant signing off of a long day of events. I hope you've got some real rich content out of it and you've taken away some learns. And it must be nearly time for a beer. So have a brilliant Wednesday evening, and thank you again. Enjoy. Take care.